The atmosphere in the grand meeting room of Trump Tower was unusually tense. Normally, this room was reserved for business deals, campaign strategies, or political maneuvers. But today was different. This wasn't just a political debate. It was an ideological clash between a father and a son, Donald Trump and Barron Trump. More than just family ties, perhaps even America's future, was on the table. Donald Trump sat at the head of the long, heavy mahogany table. Dressed in a dark navy suit, his signature red tie in place, he exuded his usual confidence. Leaning slightly back in his chair, he rested his hand on the table, studying his son. Barron sat a few seats away, his posture straight and unwavering. Despite his youth, he carried himself with a calm confidence. Unlike his father, he didn't need brute force or a raised voice. He wielded something far more dangerous: conviction and reason. The advisors in the room remained silent, tense. Some exchanged uneasy glances, while others pretended to take notes to avoid being dragged into the confrontation. Everyone knew how Donald Trump reacted when challenged. But this time, his opponent wasn't a political rival, a journalist, or a fellow statesman. It was his own son, and Barron had no intention of backing down. Trump finally broke the silence. "All right, kid," he said, his voice carrying its usual authority. "Go ahead, say what you have to say. I've heard you've been making big statements." Barron didn't blink. "Yes, because this matters." Trump raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah? Let's hear it. Impress me." Barron took a deep breath. "America's changing, Dad. If you don't change with it, you'll lose them." The air in the room grew heavier. An advisor exhaled a bit too loudly. Trump's fingers stopped tapping on the table, his eyes narrowing. "Lose who?" Barron held his father's gaze. "The people who believe in you, the ones who trust you." Trump tilted his head slightly. "I still have millions of supporters." Barron nodded. "For now." That single phrase echoed in the room like a cold wind down the spine. It wasn't a prediction. It was a warning. Trump's jaw tensed. "You think you understand how this works?" Barron smiled faintly. "I understand people." Trump let out a slow breath. "And what do you think they want? You want me to be weak? To apologize? To soften up?" Barron shook his head. "They don't want an apology." Trump leaned forward. "Then what do they want?" Barron met his father's gaze steadily. "They just want you to listen." The advisors shifted in their seats. This was dangerous territory. Trump crossed his arms. "I do listen." Barron shook his head again. "No, Dad. You talk, you push, you control, but you don't listen anymore." The room went silent. The air was thick with tension. Trump's eyes narrowed. "I listen to the people who matter." Barron's jaw tightened. "And that's the problem. You think some people matter more than others." Trump's face twitched slightly. "That's called leadership." Barron didn't hesitate. "That's called favoritism." A few advisors inhaled sharply. This wasn't just a debate anymore. This was a reckoning. Trump leaned back in his chair. "All right, since you're so smart, tell me, what am I doing wrong?" Barron took a deep breath. "For starters, treating Zelensky like an enemy is a huge mistake." Trump's face darkened instantly. One advisor closed his eyes. Another leaned back as if distancing himself from the conversation. Trump's voice was sharp. "That man dragged America into Ukraine's problems. He's draining our resources." Barron's expression remained firm. "He's protecting his country, fighting for his freedom." Trump's eyes narrowed. "With billions of our dollars?" Barron's fist clenched slightly. "And what about us? What do we stand for? Just power?" "Dad, you've always said you stand with the American people. What about the Ukrainian people? Don't they matter?" Trump took a deep breath, tapping his fingers on the table. "We need to put America first." Barron shook his head. "You always say that, but if America truly wants to be great, it won't do so by turning its back on others. It will do so by helping them." A silence fell over the room. The advisors didn't move. Trump stared at his son. Something stirred inside him, but he refused to acknowledge it. Finally, he stood up and walked toward the door. Just as he reached for the handle, he paused. Without turning around, he spoke. "You think you're so smart." Barron smiled slightly. "I just see things differently." Trump hesitated for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Maybe that's not such a bad thing." And he walked out. The advisors remained frozen. Barron adjusted his jacket and headed for the door. One advisor whispered to another, "Did we just witness history?" The other slowly nodded. "I think we did." Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, don't miss the next story. A new story awaits you every evening.